Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network once again for another South Pacific ITC Snapshot. Ladies and gentlemen, as per usual, my name is ScottyD, and I am your host for this evening. Or if you're watching this video back on YouTube, I'm your host for this video. So in the South Pacific ITC Snapshots, if you haven't watched them before, what we do is we look at the South Pacific ITC rankings, we look at the teams, the factions, as well as some of the events that have happened previously, looking at their podiums. Actually, not just some, we look at all of the events that have happened previously. But then we also look at the events that are upcoming within Australia that you're able to go and get your points at and such as well. Oh, Zero Axis coming in with the Prime resub.
Choo-choo. Let's go.
Thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate it. So yeah, so we do these every month. We do try to do them towards the start of the month. However, we did have Pantheon GT last weekend, which did eliminate our options for being able to get it on last week. So therefore, we've got it on this week. So I reckon without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump straight on in to the meat and potatoes of this thing. So we have got the rankings up on screen, and some of them we're going to add in as well. We're also going to add in info from Stat Check as we go through this as well. Thanks so much to the guys for all their hard work over there. All right. So, top 10 players. We have had a massive, and I mean massive, shakeup since the last one. So, currently in first place, we have got Brody Middleton has jumped to first place from coming in with 1,219.17 points with 6 out of 6 events. All of these guys are going to have 6 out of 6 events because they are up the top. But Brody Middleton, if you didn't catch the streams from Pantheon GT, played on the top table against our number 2 placed player, Mr. Alex Inglezos, or Alex the Greek as we like to call him, with 1,170.06 points himself. They played at the top table in Pantheon GT, and Brody was able to come out on top in that game, meaning that he was able to jump into first place, which is massive, a massive shake-up for the season. In third place, we then have Joshua Brody coming in with 1,156.19 points as well. Now, he came away with some relatively strong results over the past couple of weeks with Moab just recently and a few RTTs as well to bump his score up to be in there. So the top 3 are all New South Welshmen as well, which is really interesting to see. Then in fourth place, we've got Adam Napier from South Australia, one of the guys behind Adelaide Uprising, of course, coming in with 1,137.38 points. So it's good to see him nipping at the heels of Josh Brody, but will Adam get another big event, another opportunity to go to the top? I don't know. He's running Uprising, so I don't think he will have another opportunity unless he travels for it. Then we have got in fifth spot, Mr. Matt Morrisoli of Art of War from down in Victoria. He's sitting on 1,132.39 points. So not too far behind Adam, about 5 points behind him. And so if he's able to get those 5 points and pip Adam, I'm sure that'll be a good little bit of bragging right between those two gentlemen. Then in number 6 spot, we've got Dylan Cow, and he's dropped from being up towards the top and back down into 6th place. He's based in Victoria with 1,126.43 points. So when you're looking at the difference between 4th and 6th, there's literally 10 points in it. There's 10 points between 4th and 6th, which is absolutely massive. And welcome in, Jim Tack. Great to have you joining us, my friend. In 7th place from Victoria as well, we've got Michael Wood, who's sitting on 1,089.63 points. So Michael's been playing a lot of Chaos in terms of Khorne Demons as of late, and so he's continuing that streak at the moment. In 8th place from New South Wales, we've got Kyle Pearson on 1,080.4 points. So not too far behind Michael. If he gets another big event win, which there are a few in New South Wales still to come this year, he could potentially leapfrog him, which would be interesting to see. In 9th place, we have got James Marn. Now, I believe James is based in South Australia. He has got 1,067.3 points. So good to see him still up there in the top 10. And then rounding out our top 10, we've got Igor Callanan from New South Wales sitting on 1,053.7 points. So let me just count. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 New South Wales players in the top 10. You've got 2 South Australian and 3 Victorian. So there's no Queenslanders. There's no WA players. There's no, no ACT players. No Tassie. So I reckon some of these other states have got to start getting some bigger events going, in my personal opinion. In the ACT, we had Capital Clash this year, and I know Andrew, the TO, is going to be running that again next year. And we will be covering that once again, which I'm awesome to, really keen to do so. At least I believe we're gonna be back there covering it. Yeah, Chaplain, 100% agree that New South Wales have been absolutely kicking butt this year. But the thing is, think about it. Outside of Adelaide Uprising, the only other massive event that really has happened was the TNA Open back at the start of September. And so you had 100 players there out of 140 when, New South Wales is constantly getting 70, 60 player GTs. They're constantly getting, 20 to 30 player RTTs. So that they're just running tournaments every so often. And, when we get to the upcoming tournaments, you'll be able to see that as well. Then we're going to bring in a new facet. And I'd like to thank our friends at StatCheck, as well as Mr. Alex the Greek, for providing us a source for this information. We've got the top 5 teams in the South Pacific region, which is exciting. It's really going to be good to include these guys on the rankings going forward. So in number 1 place, we've got Chadmec. Now, I will note all of these teams have got 10 out of 10 games. So the way that it works, if you haven't seen the team rankings for the ITC before, your team can have any number of players. However, each player can only contribute, I believe it's their best 2 or 3 scores to that team's rankings. So the stronger your team is overall, not just 1 or 2 players being strong, the higher you place. And we've got Chadmec. This is Alex the Greek's team that he's a part of with I believe also Brody Middleton's a part of it. Nathan Princey as well. Quite a few notable players. Ben Tinker that we had on stream at Pantheon GT. He's also a part of it, I believe. So Chadmec is sitting at 2,067.93 points. In second place, we've got the Power Stances. Now, I believe these guys are based out of South Australia, and they're sitting on 1,899.42 points. We've then got in third place the Normal Blokes from up in Queensland. If you don't know the Normal Blokes, they have the Normal Blokes podcast and have a lot of good players in their team. And so they're sitting on 1,823.66 points. Then you've got Comrades, which I'm not 100% sure where they're based out of, but they're on 1,811.61 points. And then you've got Ethos, which is Eric Lathouris' team. I believe it also includes Chris Wright and a few other notable players. They are at 1,804.17 points. So if you look at it, there's about 150 point gap, or 160 more like it, between Chadmec and the Power Stances. And then there's 100 points, less than 100 points between the Power Stances and Ethos, which is awesome to see that this team's rivalry is really exciting to see. That the teams are going head to head. They're constantly trying to get good points and good results as well, which is awesome. I really love seeing this, and it's great to be able to bring you guys the team rankings going forward for these snapshots as well. So next, we're going to come to the faction rankings. Now, I do keep these from the factions that the top 10 players have been playing or have played this year. That does include in 9th edition. So some of these may be carried over from 9th edition or existing results from 9th edition as well. So that's something to bear in mind. So for Eldari, we've got Ben Ashton coming in with 624 points with 4 out of 4 events played. Most of these guys will have 4 out of 4 events. I think I'm just going to note the ones that don't have 4 out of 4 events played, just so if you are wanting to hunt that faction down, you can go and get a couple of events, and if you can score really well, you might be able to knock these guys off in time for Uprising. For Tyranids, Mr. Alex the Greek is still holding it on 734 points. For Ashmel Tarim, we've got Adam Napier sitting on 726 points. For Asiyani, we've got Greg McGinty from the Down Under 40K crew on 631 points. For Dark Angels, we've got Dylan Cowan from Victoria on 655 points. Admech for South Pacific is still Alex the Greek as well on 772 points. You've then got on Chaos Demons, Matt Morrisoli on 790 points. On Gene Silicolts, you've got Stuart Trainer. So he, funnily enough, he's been playing more events than what Eric Lathouris has this year, and he might become Australia's top GSC player. I'm not saying he's the same skill level as Eric, because there's hardly anyone that is the same skill level as Eric, because Eric is an absolute weapon. But in terms of rankings, this will say something as well. But also, Eric's had a big few years with the Australian WTC team, and I believe he has taken a bit of a break as well, so that's probably playing in that. So again, sometimes you do have to step away from the hobby to let real life do its thing, and you've got to focus on real life, so completely understand as well Eric stepping back. But still interesting to note a little bit of rivalry there between Stuart and Eric as well. Then for Red Corsairs, we've got Josh Brody, who is sitting on 604 points for them. Drakari. Now, this is a really interesting one. We've got Reese Cunningham with 393 points. He's only got 2 events under his belt. However, one of them was a win at RatCon last month. So it's really important to note that he won, and I believe this was before the balanced data slate as well, where we're looking at Drakari at the moment on StatCheck. They're at 40% win rate currently. So I reckon Drakari players, if you're looking for something to maybe help out your list build, look at what Reese was running, and it might be a good point of call to figure out where you might have some shortcomings or what you need to do in the current meta. Then we've got for Chaos Knights, as I've already mentioned, Mr. Nathan Princey on 662 points, which is awesome to see. We almost had him on stream round 5 for Pantheon GT, and his Chaos Knights, even from afar, are striking. They look phenomenal. So I'm hoping that at some point we can actually see them on stream. Who knows? Then we've got Iron Hands, which is still Michael Hamilton on 497 points with only 3 out of 4 events. So if you're hunting with the new Marine Codex coming out this weekend as of the time of recording, I reckon a lot of players might be taking into Iron Hands and absolutely gunning for Iron Hands. But who knows? Michael, I believe, is playing at Uprising, so he could get a decent score there and secure that ranking as well. We've then got for Adeptus Sororitas, Ryan Jones, who is sitting on 529 points there. For just straight up the Khorne Super Faction, you've got Michael Wood on 554 points. Important to note, he's only played 3 out of 4 events as well, so not a super easy faction to go and pip him on, but an easier one if you haven't got all your events in for that faction as of yet. For Necrons, we've got Igor Kalanen on 740 points. On Khorne Demons, we've got Michael Wood again on 272 points. So if you're wanting to play just straight Khorne Demons, that is probably a better ranking to go for if you're wanting to tech into Khorne and specifically send it down that route and try and get that faction win. Then you've got Death Guard, which is Richard Hill, sitting on 667 points. You've then got for Orcs, Kyle Pearson on 722 points. For Imperial Knights, you've got James Mahon on 735 points. Then for Goth Orcs, you've got Hugh Titchener on 531 points. For Leagues of Votan, it is still Gary Morris sitting on 667 points. For Tau Empire, Tau have jumped up dramatically as of late. They're currently sitting on a 55% win rate, which is quite encouraging, and their recent points drops means they've jumped up in popularity with about 5% of the overall post-balance data slate player base playing Tau, which is really encouraging to see as they were down the bottom previously. So Cooper Fitzgerald in New South Wales is currently the top of that with 626 points. And then we have got White Scars, which is CC, and I've just noticed I haven't been scrolling this as we've been reading through it, chat. My sincerest apologies. We've got CC coming in with 226 points and 2 out of 4 events. So if you want to play Space Marines and you don't want to play Iron Hands, White Scars might be the one for you with the speed detachment, and you can maybe pip them there as well. So yeah, so really encouraging to see that going on for the rankings, whether that's your top faction, top team, or the top 10 players as well. It's really encouraging to see that overall. But I'd love to hear from you guys in chat.
The Emperor's Finest reporting.
Lynch Lord coming in with the tier 1 resub. Thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate that support from both yourself and Zero Axis as well. So, now we get to the fun stuff, team. Now we get to the fun stuff, which is looking at the events that have happened. Which I think we've got 20 to look at. Previously, in the September one, we had about 30 events. It was kind of crazy because August was a scuffed month. We didn't actually do a snapshot for August from memory. It was either July or August or somewhere in there. We just didn't. And so September, we had to play catch up. Whereas for this one, we've got 20, which 20 in the space of about, I think it's about 4 or 5 weeks is massive, I will just say. So first up, we have got the Objective Secured Western Australian Team Challenge, or the WATC, as it's also called. It was held on September 9th and 10th with 20 teams of 6 players. So this is a bit of a deviation away from where we've seen team events in New South Wales, where you've actually seen them more be 5 players rather than 6. So Mike Bask and the team over at Objective Secured doing it a little bit differently, which is great to see. In first place, we've got Team Tugmanauts. And yes, if you say that too fast, it will sound like what you think it sounds like, but I'm not going to repeat it. They went 5 wins, no losses, no draws. They had Callum German on Gene Stealer Colts, Harrison Darge on Black Templars, Lachlan Rigg on Adeptus Custodes, Matthew Crosby on Chaos Space Marines, Nathan Bailey on Eldari, and Robert Horton on Thousand Suns. So really quite a strong faction with a good mix between, they've actually got 2 Xenos players, 2 Imperium players, and 2 Chaos players, which is a nice spread. So I reckon there would have been a lot of tech in those lists to deal with particular matchups, and their matchup process must have been really solid. In second place for the event, we had McFall's Machines, which went 4 wins and 1 draw. Aiden McFall on Thousand Suns. You had Jaron Losh on Imperial Knights, Matthew Clegg on Adeptus Custodes, Mitch Bryan on Gene Stealer Colts, Robert Ballante on Death Guard, and Thomas Wolfe on Ashmil Tarim. So again, they did draw to the next team, which is Team Crags, I believe. From memory, I did do this during today, so it's relatively fresh in my mind. Team Crags also went 4 wins and 1 draw. Actually, no, I think it's 4 wins and a loss, because I went win-loss. I think I went win, draw, loss. So yeah, 4 wins and 1 loss there, sorry. Adam Frisch on Gene Stealer Colts. You had Avon Taylor on Chaos Space Marines, Brandon Reed on Ashmel Tarim, Dion Hill on Black Templars, Mark Frisch on Tyranids, and Will Tolley on Imperial Knights. So some really interesting spread. Second and third both had Knight players. They both had Ashmel Tarim players. The top 2 also had Custodes and Thousand Suns. Templars made an appearance in the first place and third place. So really encouraging to see that there's a bit of diversity in the teams format, where there are some factions that do well, and you've got diversity in terms of choices. It's also important to note that none of the teams actually took double knights. They only took 1 knight list, so it didn't pigeonhole them too much by doing so. So then next up, we come to RatCon itself, as I already previously mentioned. It was on September 16th and 17th, and it was an 89-player major. I believe they may have sold out and had some drops from memory. So, but this was before the balanced data. No, I think they allowed the balanced data slate, which had just come out the week before in terms of list subs. So Reese Cunningham came in first place with Drakari. He then had Boyd Morrill with Grey Knights. and then Christian Pierce on 1,000 Suns. Really interesting to see Grey Knights up there, considering that Grey Knights at the moment are sitting at a 45% win rate with 4% of the overall players post-data slate actually playing them. They're actually not in a great spot at the moment. So we'll see how they go over the next month or so in terms of their win rate. But still encouraging to see that if you've got a good pilot, you can pilot them and play them well. Then the next one up, we have got the Convergence of Might GT. This was also on September 16th and 17th with 19 players in attendance. We've got Stephen Hammond in first place with Eldari, Connor White in second place with World Eaters, and then Tyrell Rulston with Dark Angels. So this was up in Cairns, I believe, which is great to see events going up in far North Queensland there. Awesome to see. And big shout out to one of our community members, Sinner, who does organize the Auspicious Gaming community, and that is where Tyrell is from, which is awesome to see. A nice spread as well. You've got one Imperium, one Chaos, one Xenos. Of course, Eldari being up the top. Eldari is still sitting in a 50% win rate 3-4 weeks after the balanced data slate. So I think they weren't hit hard enough, is what we're starting to see. But it's good to see some of the other factions start to come through as well. World Eaters are, interestingly enough, sitting at a 52% win rate now. So they're kind of what you might consider a mid-table menace. But they can also get those 4-1s, 3-2s. And if you can't get through them, then you're not going to get to the top tables, right? So it's something that's important to keep an eye out on in the current balanced data slate era. Next up, we've got the Are You OK Warhammer 40K RTT on September 16th. I believe this was held at Good Games Maitland. It had 15 players in attendance, with Chris Wright with Adeptus Astartes taking out first place, Jack Blanche taking out second place with Chaos Knights, and then Nathan Saunders taking out third place with Ultramarines. So really interesting there. I believe Chris Wright was playing his Raven Guard at that point, but not 100% certain. Because I didn't have a look at the lists, obviously. So seeing him play Marines is good to see. He could be playing Space Wolves, which he's previously played. He did play Raven Guard at Pantheon GT as well, so really interesting to see. Obviously, Chaos Knight's getting up there with Jack Blanche. Really knows what he's doing with that army as well. And then Nathan Saunders with Ultramarines. Great to see him up there with the Ultras coming in third. Next up, we have got the Down Under 40K Sydney RTT that was also held on the 16th of September with 29 players in attendance for it. And the man, the myth, the legend, Nathan Princey took it out in first place with Chaos Knights. Then you have David Sarum with Imperial Knights in second place, and then Michael House on Orcs taking out third. So really interesting. All three players undefeated in that top three. There was probably at least maybe one or two more undefeated players in my gut feeling, because what's that? If that's 30, that's then 15, and there's 7. So yeah, probably 3 to 4 undefeated players there. So it would have came down to points, interestingly enough. So then we've got the Game Center Narellan monthly RTT that also happened on September 16th. 3 RTTs on the one day in New South Wales is massive. It was a 6-player RTT, though. You had Richard Hill coming in first place with Death Guard, Jay Marn, who was the TO for Pantheon GT that we had on for 2 streams, and also, he's a great guy, runs Pantheon Studios, so definitely check them out over there on YouTube as well. And he was playing his Tau Empire, and then you had Andrew Sherman with Necrons coming in third place as well. Then we go over to South Australia with the TTW Prospect September 2,000 point Strike Force tournament on September 16th as well. A lot of events on September 16th. Must have been a popular weekend. 21 player attendance for this one. You had John O'Bishop with Tau Empire taking out first place, Peter Hatcliffe with Death Guard taking out second place, and Ben Reggett taking out third place with Adeptus Custodes. So really interesting to see that there's a good spread of Marines, Xenos, and Chaos in there. Not Marines, Imperium in there as well, with some solid scores for all 3 gentlemen as well. We then come back to New South Wales with Battle in the Bush. This was out in Orange on September 23rd and 24th. They ended up having an 83-player major at the end, I believe they may have also sold out at some stage too. But in first place was Igor Kalanin with Necrons. Then you had Woody Woo coming in second place with Adeptus Custodes. And then Dale Mann coming in third place with Eldari as well. Then we head back to South Australia.
The chapter calls and we answer.
I think I'm just going to call that Roving. I don't know how to pronounce your name, sorry, in its full entirety, but I did see Dentist in there. Thanks for the follow. Really appreciate it. Where were we? So, South Australia 40K circuits for the September tournaments. They've got the Acolyte B on the September 24th, 16-player RTT. You have Michael Wood in first place with Death Guard. You've got Peter Skyen in second place with Tyranids and Chen Gao in third place with Eldari. So I believe that the Tyrannid Codex came out just before this weekend, or maybe not. I could be getting my weekends mixed up. It might be a weekend too early, but that is something else to bear in mind as we start to see more Tyranids start to come up. They might be using the new Codex as well. So then we have then got the South Australian 40K Neophyte RTT. They had 10 players in attendance on 24th of September. Liam Bryce took first place with Chaos Knights. In second place, we had Jason Symes, I should say, with Ash Militarum, and then Jordan Speak in third place with Death Guard. A lot of Death Guards starting to pop up. Now, this is the interesting thing, is that Death Guard are actually sitting at a 48% win rate. They are continuing to climb up out of that 40% win rate over the past 4 weeks, which is really, really encouraging to see. And I hope they do hit that 50% because I think they do have what it takes now to do that in the current meta. You've then got the Acolyte A tournament for the South Australian 40K circuit with 16 players in attendance as well. You've got Philip Wessels in first place with Black Templars, James Scott in second place with Chaos Knights, and then Liam Fletcher in third place with Ultramarines as well. Then we come to 2 weekends ago where we have got good old Moab 40K Sylvania Heights in New South Wales on September 30th and October 1st. 55-player GT. Josh Brody took out first place with his Red Corsairs. In second place, you had Brad Milner coming in with Orcs, and Alex Englezos coming in with Cronus Homogeny, so Tyranids, for those of you who don't know. In third place, which is awesome. And it looks like he tied against Brad in round 2. So it means that both of them, in terms of fighting against each other, everyone in the top 3 is undefeated at a 55-player GT. Good on him. So yeah, really great to see all 3 of those players up there getting those points and doing really well with those armies. Then we have got the Fight for Glory doubles. Yeah, Chadmek. You just see some of the first place places just go Chadmek, 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 Chadmek. It's no surprise why their team's right at the top, right? So many Chadmek results in there for sure, 100%. So then we've got the Fight for Glory doubles RTT that was on October 1st. It was 25 teams of 2 players, and this was actually over in South Australia. In first place, we had Lost in the Mail team that went 3 wins, no draws, no losses. With Nate Mail on Necrons and Serena Mail on Death Guard. You then had the second place team was Indomitable Phalanx on 3 wins, no losses, no draws, with Ben Reggett on Adeptus Custodes and Stephen McGregor on 1,000 Suns. And then in third place, you had Yabby Hunters with 3 wins, no losses, no draws, with Liam Fletcher on Ultramarines and Mark Karana on Orcs as well. Next up, we come to the AMM Unfriendly Labor Day Bash. So this was October 2nd, the Monday public holiday with 9-player RTT. You had James Mann in first place playing Imperial Knights, Craig Peterson in second place with Tyranids, and Brendan Catalano in third place with Leagues of Votan. This is where we're starting to see Leagues of Votan starting to come back up through the mix. You know, they are still sitting on a 50% win rate after 56% win rate, I should say, after last weekend, which is really encouraging to see that their points changes and their balance update was not only really good for them, it may have pushed them a little too far, so they might need to pull back on some of the points, or maybe just tweak the changes they made to their faction rules there as well. Then we have got the Deep Lunge that also happened on October 2nd. This was a 5-player RTT with only 2 rounds. And I believe Adam Napier was running that one. So we have Jono Bishop in first place, followed by Adam Napier in second, and Peter Hatcliffe in third. I don't have the factions for that one, unfortunately. So I can't attribute what factions they were running at this point. But moving on. We've got the Adeptus Dub Vegas End of Slow Grow Tournament on October 7th and 8th, which is a 12-player. I'm calling it an RTT because it's only 4 rounds and it's only 12 players. But it was over the 2 days, so I dare say it was 2 rounds each day. You had Peter Aldering on Death Card in first place. Then you had Adam Bowden in second place with Necrons and Daniel Anderson in third place on Adeptus Mechanicus. Then we have the Auspicious Masters Invitational Tournament that happened on October 7th. It was an 8-player RTT happening, I believe it was in Townsville, from memory, is where Sinner is based out of with his community of the Auspicious Tactics crew. We've got Stephen Hammond in first place with Eldari, Connor White in second place with World Eaters, and Dean Vincent in third place with Necrons. Then we come to the tournament that we covered on the network last weekend, which is the Pantheon GT, October 7th and 8th, with 67 players. There were a few drops before the start of the event, but still good to see. I think we ended up with like 61 at the start of day 2, from memory, or somewhere around there, with drops afterwards. But in first place, you had Brody Middleton coming in with 5 wins with the Tyranids. Liam Marr coming in second with Ash Militara. And then you have Alex Englezos coming in third place with Tyranids. Now, what's interesting to note here, and I think I may have mentioned it on Monday night stream, Alex actually could have drew his game against Brody, and he didn't realize it until after the game, which is really, it's funny because you think back and you go, I could have done that, and that would have tied up the game. But Brody still probably would have won in terms of points. I think Liam would have leapfrogged him as well, because it just would have put him to a draw. So it would have given him an additional 5 points, which I'm not sure if that would have put him in a second instead of third. But it's an interesting thing to think about and consider. So Liam coming second with Asher Militarum is really good to see. We had him on stream round 4 up against Will Wyckoff, and who was running Tau. And that game will be up on the YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks. And then we had Alex on round 3 and round 5, and Brody on round 5 up against Alex. All of those games were absolutely awesome. Great to see those players up there. So once they're up on the YouTube, definitely encourage you to check those out. Then we have got SpringCon, which happened, SpringCon 2023, which is also on October 7th. I believe this was up in Queensland. You've got Jacob O'Donnell in first place with Thousand Suns, Joshua Woods in second place with Death Guard, and Petru Lesser in third place with Eldari. So no Imperium here, ladies and gentlemen. It's just all Chaos and Xenos having fun. So yeah, still, great to see Thousand Suns still being able to win out there. Death Guard coming in second is a great result. But then also Eldari coming up to finish off that event as well in the third place podium. Then we come to the Objective Secured Mixed Doubles 40K tournament on October 8th with 18 players for the RTT. In first place, we have Sugar and Spice, and I forgot to add whether they went 3-0 and all that. I believe all 3 teams may have gone 3-0, or at least 2 wins and a draw, 2 wins and a loss for those last 2. Sugar and Spice won with Elliot Luttrell on Adeptus Sororitas and Jared Slight on Adeptus Custodes. Dustpan and Broom was the second team with Jordan Beresford on Adeptus Mechanicus and Lachlan Rigg on Emperor's Children. And then Stinkbugs had Alex. Now, I'm not going to butcher that last name for Alex. Unfortunately, that is a really complex one, and I do not want to mispronounce that, on Death Guard, and then Joshua Steffens on Tyranids. So that really rounds out all of the events that have happened since our last snapshot, ladies and gentlemen. It's really healthy because you can see a lot of different factions filtering into those top 3. It's not just all Eldari or all Tyranids or Death Guard or Thousand Suns or Custodes. Like, there's a lot of really good faction diversity. And when we look at the top 3 factions as of this week, you've got Eldari on 57%, Black Templars on 56%, and Votann on 56% in terms of win rates. Now, Black Templars might be affected by the Marine Codex releasing. It might bring them down, or it might slingshot them up further. Eldari is still strong, and I think they still need to be hit down a little bit more. And Votann just might need their changes to be brought back in a little bit. But outside of that, it's really, really healthy out there in the competitive scene in Australia in all the different areas as well, which is great to see. But I'd love to hear your opinions in chat. And for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, we do this live on the ATWN Twitch channel currently, and you can join us there when we do these. Make sure you're checking out our Facebook and Instagram pages so that you know when we are doing the ITC snapshots. We'll announce it the Sunday before, so that then you're aware of when they are coming up for the week. But overall, that's all the events that have kind of happened in the past month and a half, which is awesome to see. It's awesome to see so many people are getting out there playing competitive 40K. Now, before we get into the tournaments that are coming up, ladies and gentlemen, just want to thank everyone who is watching us live on Twitch. And if you do want to support the work that we do here at the ATWN, the tournament coverage we provide, the rankings updates for everyone to keep you in the know about what events are coming up, what events have happened, who are your top 10, where is everyone in terms of team rankings and factions. Feel free to drop a follow on the page. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a subscribe. Make sure you're notified as to when we're releasing content or when we're doing live streams. Also, if you want to financially support us, no pressure to do so, but feel free to check out our Ko-Fi page where you can support us from either $5 Australian a month or $10 Australian a month, with those 2 different tiers, with those rewards being fulfilled via our Discord, as well as then also you could subscribe here on Twitch. You've got a Prime sub, you can use it for free every 30 days to subscribe to a new channel, or you can use your own cash and subscribe over here on Twitch. But again, no pressure to do so. Any support that you do provide to us is greatly appreciated. And once again, thanks to Zero and Lynch Lord for supplying those subscriptions. Really appreciate that, guys. All right, so with the kind of spiel out of the way, let's jump into the tournaments that are coming up, ladies and gentlemen, because we've got a couple. So we've got the Game Centre monthly RTT coming up on the 14th of October over at Smeaton Grange in New South Wales. This is Game Centre Narellan as well, I will note. And it's got 20 players as its capacity for the RTT. Then on the 21st of October, we've got the Down Under 40K Sydney October RTT with 30 players in attendance. Not 30 players in attendance, 30 player capacity at French's Forest in New South Wales. So just north, I believe it's just north of Manly. So that's another really easy to access point if you are looking for some RTT action in Sydney. And then on that should be, I don't know why that one is there. That one shouldn't be there. I probably missed it, ladies and gentlemen. Then we've got Oktoberfest 2023. It's a 60-player major up in Ipswich, Queensland, which is awesome to see on October 28th and 29th. We've then got the TTW Prospect October Strike Force RTT with 22 players out at Prospect, South Australia on October 29th, which is awesome. We've then got the Hobart GT coming up on the November 4th and 5th in Hobart, Tasmania. They're expecting 60 players in attendance for a major tournament, which is awesome to see. Then we've got the Meta Man fundraiser, which is happening in Woolner, Northern Territory on November 4th, and they're expecting 16 players for their RTT. The 7th event we've got coming up is Fight for Glory 2K tournament. This one is an RTT on November 5th out at Modbury in South Australia, and they're expecting 40 players, which is kind of huge for an RTT on a Sunday. So really hope that you guys over in South Australia can get out there to support that tournament and maybe even earn some really good points, because there's going to be a lot of chances to be undefeated that weekend at that tournament, I should say, as well. Then we have got on November 11th and 12th, we've got the Gladiator Gaming Teams Tournament for November, 110-player major. Now, I believe that means they're opening up to 22 5-player teams, which is kind of huge, but that's just my best guess at this stage. Then, to continue the events that are coming up, we have then got the Game Center Narellan GT, which is a 32-player GT is what they're hoping for, in Smeaton Grange, New South Wales, on November 11th and 12th. So if you're not locked into going to a GT and you want to travel out to a store to play in a smaller GT, get a decent amount of points in, that is probably the one you're wanting to head over to if you are in New South Wales, and particularly in the Sydney or maybe the South Coast or Central Coast, it's probably relatively easy to get to. And then the last event that we are going to be looking at is the Down Under 40K Sydney RTT at the end of November. They're expecting 30 players there at French's Forest in New South Wales on November 25th. So another great opportunity to head out there to get your ITC points as we head into the back of the year, ladies and gentlemen. But, ladies and gentlemen, we'll open up the floor for a second. What do you guys think of the Australian scene so far this year? What do you think of all the tournaments that are happening? What do you think of how 10th's going? I think it's really exciting to see that there are so many events going on so consistently as well. Like, we've at least got 1, 2, maybe 3 events across multiple states on the same weekend, which is really good to see. And then we've also got bigger events like the Gladiator Gaming Teams might draw in players from New South Wales, for example. Or, you know, the Hobart GT might pull in the whatchamacallit, I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head. Victorian players and such as well. Sync Blackout, no, I did not. They do not have it up as an ITC event, unfortunately. So whilst that is happening tomorrow, it's unfortunately something that is not on my radar because it is not locked in as an ITC event. The event isn't up on the ITC website for BCP and such. But if they decide to do that retroactively, then we will cover that in the November snapshot as well. But yeah, there's a lot of players that are meant to be in attendance, and I've spoken with a few of them, and they're not going. So it's really going to be interesting to see what actually happens at the Oceanic Champs tomorrow for 40K. Because, yeah, I mean, you know, it is what it is, unfortunately. But I hope that some of the issues that are faced by the OCC at this point do get overcome for next year. Yes, I definitely agree, Zero. So Zero is just saying 10th edition buffs slash nerfs being more consistent is a good thing. Tournaments rising in popularity is great. Yes. Now, one thing I will add is that tournaments towards just kind of a month before the balanced data slate dropped was that tournament attendance was waning. As I'd mentioned, TNA Open actually had 40 drops. They were sold out 140 and they ended up being at 100. So that's because people weren't happy to play in an Eldar dominant meta, an Eldari and a Genestealer Cult dominant meta. Whereas now, Genestealer Cults are now sitting at a 51% win rate after their changes. Eldari is still at a 57, but it's not a 67, right? It's not a every 3 games they're winning 2 kind of thing. So, but ladies and gentlemen, that is actually going to be it for this South Pacific ITC Snapshot. I want to thank everyone that has joined us here on the Twitch channel, and if you are watching us on the YouTube channel, I really appreciate you getting updated with what's going on with all this information. I hope you're able to attend some tournaments that are coming up. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this one, and that's going to be it for this snapshot, ladies and gentlemen. We'll talk to you next time.